okay, you know what? I have so much on my plate with this kid. I just can't worry about the Jewish education. I'm worried about the therapies and the speech and the OT and PT and all this therapy they need. I just can't worry about that. They was saying there's a humanitarian reason. Not only does the neshama need it, but there's a humanitarian reason why you have to show the kid that you believe in them and that they could grow and they could be part of Klal Yisrael.
I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to or watching Inspiration for the Nation. And this week we sat down with Rabbi Levi Shemtov. Unfortunately, couldn't sit down with his wife, who's also the founder of the Friendship Circle. But we talk about why the Friendship Circle started, what its mission is, and most importantly, how it is teaching the world how to love, no matter who the person is, how they got into whichever circumstance they are in their life, and just how to just take away all those barriers and just connect with people and be there, be empathetic, and just be more human. You're going to also hear about the incredible Flatbush Community Fund that is changing worlds in the middle of this episode. And this week's episode is in memory of Shimon Dovid ben Yaakov Shleima and Miriam bas Yaakov Moshe. Here is Rabbi Levi. We can all use some inspiration to help us overcome the obstacles we encounter in our lives. Get ready for thrilling conversations about struggle and triumph with those in pursuit of making a positive impact in this world. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. So I'm here with Rabbi Levi Shemtov, all the way from Detroit. I don't know if you specifically came in for this.
I came in a lot earlier because of it. I have a chasana tonight.
Okay, mazel tov.
So I came in
mazel tov
on an early morning flight to be able to do this.
Wow, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So
sure.
We're obviously going to get into the Friendship Circle, but first tell me a little about yourself, like where you're from, and we'll get into it.
Sure. I grew up in Crown Heights. Was born in Tafshin Lamed, 1969, and so grew up, near the Rebbe, in the Rebbe shul. My family is a long line Lubavitch family. Many of my uncles and aunts and cousins were shluchim of the Rebbe. My grandfather was a shliach. We grew up in a family that was more in the tamchin d'oraisa. My father was a business person, but more than a business person. Before a business person, he was an asken in the Crown Heights community, on behalf of the Crown Heights community, and also worked, was very involved in Lubavitch in the back end, where helping shluchim, and was in the more in the helping shluchim part and inspiring us, his children, to become shluchim, or people like him that would help and be the back end of shluchim. And, I grew up wanting to be a shliach of the Rebbe my whole life. That was my goal. Got married. I got married 2 weeks before the histalkus of the Rebbe. Before we got married, we got an apartment in Crown Heights, my wife and I, who shared our dream. And we were planning to live in Crown Heights near the Rebbe for a couple of years. By the histalkus on Gimel Tammuz,
for people who don't know what a stalkus is, myself included.
When the Rebbe passed away.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. Yeah. But I didn't want to assume, like, the stalkus maybe it was my birthday. And I'm like...
No. Sorry. When the Rebbe passed away on Gimel Tammuz that year, 1994, we was sort of like, here we plan on being in Crown Heights for a year or two and then becoming emissaries of the Rebbe. Here the Rebbe passed away.
What are you going to do?
What do we do?
Right.
And very, very quickly, because we always anticipated that we would become emissaries of the Rebbe and do the work that the Rebbe inspired us to do, but that the Rebbe would keep inspiring us and keep telling us what to do. And here, the Rebbe's not here with us physically. It turned around and it just made the opposite. It said, you know what? Now we can't wait a year or two. where the Rebbe always taught growth is always take every energy that there is and turn it into growth. So search out opportunity for shlichus right away, and we found this opportunity in Detroit, and we moved there in August of '94.
So hold on, before we get to Detroit, what's it feel like? Because I'm super Litvish. I'm like a snag. Well, what's the feeling of like being so close to a Rebbe and planning, I guess, even the early stages of your married life to be close to him, and then he passes away? Is it a feeling of like being lost? What is that?
So it's what I felt it's a very you feel it's I lost in later years. I lost both my parents. It's the same category, but it was a lot stronger.
Really?
Yeah. When the Rebbe passed away, it was because when your parent passes away, Rahman al-Litzlan, the first thing you think of is how's life going to go on, and then you look around and you see that everyone's life went on. Mm-hmm. But when see that this doesn't happen when I talk about my parents,
right?
But when the Rebbe passed away, it's like what's going to be like. We didn't know that things could go on, but we know that Hashem at the end it settles in. We know that Hashem runs the world, and all the inspiration and all the guidance and leadership that we needed will continue to have, and it was proven correct that we're all growing and continuing to do the shlichus with no less enthusiasm. And like I said, I got married 2 weeks before the Rebbe passed away. I grew up by the Rebbe. I have enough time passed that I have 3 children that are married, 4 children that are married, 3 that are already shluchim. And they have no less enthusiasm to be shluchim, to dedicate their lives to do what the Rebbe wanted them to do. There's no less enthusiasm. So what we were lost is basically we didn't understand how the Rebbe was going to continue how we're going to continue to get that inspiration and guidance, and we do. That's so it worked. So I told someone that I was talking to around that time. I said, someone asked me, is the Rebbe going to get, the Rebbe wasn't well, is the Rebbe going to get better? I said, someone that's a faithful shepherd doesn't abandon his flock. But the Rebbe figured out a way how to not abandon us, even by not being here physically. And somehow it worked.
Wow.
At that day, on the 3rd of Tammuz, 5754, I didn't think, 1994, I didn't see how that would be, but David runs the world, and that's, if you have a tzaddik is not going to lead anyone in a direction that's not going to lead to a good place, and the Rebbe led us, and it didn't not lead to a good place.
Right.
Led only to a better place.
That's true. Okay,
so the whole friendship circle started after, so based on the inspiration of the Rebbe.
Yeah. So tell us about that. How, in what way? You mentioned about on a pre-call there was. Oh, that's something else. There's a letter or something.
But that's a little different. So one of the things that when it talks about becoming a shliach and an emissary of the Rebbe, reminded of a story that happened with my uncle. Olav Hashem, his name is Rabbi Menachem Sudak. He was, from the first shluchim to London of England. He was the head shliach of United Kingdom. Before he went on shluchus, he asked the Rebbe what he says, when I get to London, what should I do? So the Rebbe said, there's 1,000 things you can do. And when you get there, you'll figure out what needs to be done, and that's what you should do. So I guess this was one of the 1,000 things. So the Rebbe never said anything about friendship circle, but it's one of the 1,000 things that if you understand the Rebbe's Torah and you understand the Rebbe's guidance, if you go to a place and you're looking for what needs to be done, that's what needs to be done. So the story of how friendship circle started specifically, there was a Rav, a Shliach in Detroit. His name was Rabbi Yitzchak Meir Kagan Olav Shalom, who was associate director of Lubavitcher of Michigan, and he had a relationship where he was like he was being mekarev, and he was being friends with and a mentor to and a counselor to a young man by the name of Danny Sobel. And Danny Sobel was the second child in a very successful family. He was a great guy. I never met him, but he was everyone loved him. But he suffered from mental illness, which led to some addiction issues, but underlying it was mostly mental illness. And then eventually he succumbed to his mental illness and passed away at 28 years old. And his parents told Rabbi Kagan at Shiva, he said, is there a Lubavitch rabbi that we can, maybe fund the start of something that could be the rabbi to the future Danny Sobels? Mm. So I heard about this opportunity, and I said I want to look into it, and I was told, nah, that's not, you're too ambitious for that. This is someone that's going to be sitting in a small little place, waiting for people to come in. I said, no. So my wife and I talked about it, and we said, you know what, this is much bigger, because what happened here? What was the relationship between Rabbi Kagan and Danny Sobel? They had on the outside, they had nothing in common. I mean, you would see the two of them, you would
the odd couple.
It would be the oddest of odd couples you could ever think of, and yet they had the most beautiful, profound relationship. And the reason was because Danny had so many labels attached to him, so many labels, and positive labels and negative labels, but a lot of positive labels. But he didn't see himself for all those labels. And Rabbi Kagan saw him, when he came to Rabbi Kagan saw him for his neshama. So I asked the question, I said, who else will benefit from people seeing them for their neshama? That's going to be my shlichus, is finding people who need people to see them for their neshama and will benefit by that. So we didn't even think about people. So we called it Friendship Circle, and I was working with people with mental illness and addiction.
Where'd the name come from?
We made up. We made up the name. Okay. There was going to be a house. The Sobel family was going to build a house where people can come, but first we had to build the organization, and it felt funny to us. So the name Friendship House was there, and it felt funny having an organization called House that didn't have a house.
Right.
So it was in our apartment. So we actually thought that Friendship Circle would be a temporary name until we move into a house, and then we would change it to Friendship House. And it was all about, the first thing we did was counseling people with addiction. I became pretty good at helping people with addiction, and we still have a program now. We built a house, that's a side story, and we still have a program now called Friendship House. And we have a Rav, a Shliach there, Rabbi Greenwald, who does exactly that. He does the original vision to be there for the Danny Sobels of the world. And we have that. It's called the Daniel Sobel Friendship House, and that's a division of Friendship Circle. But we really asked the question, who else needs friends? That's who needs friends. And I went around asking everyone in the community, from across the spectrum of the Jewish community. People sent me, you should go visit prisons. All right, I started visiting prisons. We still do that. All the things we started, we still do.
Wow.
But people kept saying, children with special needs need friends. But I didn't know how I was going to do that. That wasn't me, and this was. So one time, my wife and I said, okay, what are our goals? We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. What are our goals, and what are our assets? So our goals, one was, let's do something for children with special needs. Our assets, we didn't have any money because this was a 2-year funding, and then the funding ran out. 2 years of a salary, and then that's it. That's all we got. And then eventually the house. What do we have? We have my wife her experience was she was a very good teen motivator. She was a good teacher, and she was motivating teens. Okay, we got it. We had the aha moment. Let's motivate teenagers to become friends with children with special needs. And that was like one of our programs. At that point we thought the addiction and the mental health would be even the bigger one. And then through one thing led to another, we built up the teen volunteers. And the true the breakthrough moment for Friendship Circle was when we realized that the success that we were having in recruiting volunteers, and we were getting volunteers were pouring in more than we were creating programs just to have places to.
You're doing something right when there's a outpouring of.
Exactly. So what we realized was happening is that we've discovered another part of the population that needs people to see them for their neshama and not for everything around them. And that part of the population is everyone else, is that all of us. And we saw the teens were so hungry for this relationship. And the only thing that could explain it wasn't their community service hours. It was, some of them came in for their community service hours. Some of the temples have requirements for bar and bas mitzvah to do some volunteering. A lot of people came in that way, but they came because either their parents pushed them or peer pressure or it looked cool for a minute, but they stayed for the soul connection. And that's a whole other story, is the problem of the labels that we put on people, and not only the negative labels. Everyone knows that the negative labels are bad, but the positive labels that we assume as positive labels.
Could you give me an example?
You're beautiful, you're smart, you're successful, you're going to be that's not the way a lot of times that's not the way the young person sees themselves. And you're telling them a label, but really you're laying on them expectations. And I don't want, that's not what I want. And all those labels are all, you're skinny, okay? So you're skinny means you better say skinny.
Right.
It sounds like a compliment, but the other thing is
a demand.
You better stay skinny or I'm going to hate you. All those things. And that's not who they are. And that's not, someone saying, someone else, someone, oh, you have a nice car. Am I my car? So do you like me because of my car, because of what I'm wearing, where I'm going to school? What, what's our relationship? So people dress a certain way and look a certain way in this to get friends, and then they come home and then they don't know if the people are their friends or their car's friends, and would they lose their friends? So all these things are all, when you have a pure relationship, when they have this relationship that they have with a child that they met at Friendship Circle, it's real, it's pure, and it's strong, and they keep coming back for it.
Do some of these, I don't know what I know in like High Lifeline they're called, and Camp Simcha it's called like campers. So
right, yeah, anyone, yeah,
yes,
campers, the kids,
kids, the campers. Do they feel a pressure to remain in their state in order to have this relationship, or is it like, no, it's not about that?
No, they create long-lasting friendships, and a lot of times siblings of the kids especially want to join the programs because they love the atmosphere that's there, and the success of a the ultimate success of something like Friendship Circle is that the whole community realizes that it should be a place that's more accepting, and realize what you gain and the beauty that you gain from people, from being, it's from interacting and having friendships and relationships with people who are quote special needs.
So, but I mentioned this before, the pre-call. You mentioned a fascinating letter from the Rebbe.
Sure. Thank you. So, one of the things, there was a doctor who worked in the area. He was a psychologist, and he worked in the area of special needs. Then they used a word for it that I'm not going to use now. But
the R word.
The R word, right?
Okay, yeah.
But that was normal in the right
Back
way.
then,
that was the right. That was how you used it. He was very frustrated by the lack of engagement in the Jewish community with people who had special needs. And he says in his story that he walked around with a newspaper clipping of a nun giving a bar mitzvah class to a child with Down syndrome, and asking the question, why couldn't this person find a Jewish person that would give them the lesson? And he wrote to Gedolei Yisrael, to rabbis and to leaders, and he got the only one who wrote him back a real long, on point letter with guidance was the Rebbe. And he wrote him, I read the letter and I'll show it to you soon, that he wrote him basically how the Rebbe wanted, it was like a mixture of both. The Rebbe wanted to focus on, the Rebbe was lamenting the fact that children with special needs were being left out of Jewish education. So on one hand, the Rebbe was focusing that you have to give them Jewish education. But on the other hand, the Rebbe was saying that there's a humanitarian reason to it. So the Rebbe wanted to feed their neshama, but the Rebbe came to it with a humanitarian reason and said, this child sees his or her brother or sister getting this education, and they're not getting it, and that means they're being left out. So the Rebbe, on one hand, wanted to feed their neshama with Yiddishkeit, but said that there's a psychological reason why you have to do that. It's not only for their neshama, for their soul, that they need this Yiddishkeit, but they need it. There's a humanitarian reason, and now we see that all the time. That the children with special needs, when they get left out, and the Rebbe said that parents have to be encouraged not to think, okay, you know what, I have so much on my plate with this kid, I just can't worry about the Jewish education. I'm worried about the therapies and the speech and the OT and PT and all this therapy they need. I just can't worry about that. I was saying there's a humanitarian reason. Not only does the neshama need it, but there's a humanitarian reason why you have to show the kid that you believe in them and that they could grow and they could be part of Klal Yisrael, and they should know the Manashtana if they can. I'm saying don't say that's not a priority. It is a priority because they're sitting there with their siblings who know the Manashtana. Mm. In another letter, the Rebbe writes, and the Rebbe refers to the community of, and uses the R word, and then the Rebbe says, I wish I could get people to change what they call it.
Really?
This is in the 70s.
Wow.
And I would call them special. And the special is not only, I'm not just saying it as a euphemism, but I really believe they have a special neshama, and I wish we could get everyone to call them special.
Wow.
And according to this doctor, there was no one referring, there was no one doing that then. I didn't go to a linguistic study to see, but I did my own little peripheral research and not find anyone referring to that. That wasn't the point of the letter. The point of the letter was, again, so what happened was, not only did Rebbe answer him, but a couple of months later, the Rebbe initiated himself the conversation. He got his answer. He was all excited. He went around and showed everyone the letter from the Rebbe. He went to the Federation and everywhere, and he talks about how it helped him get funding for things and inspiration. And he never wrote to the Rebbe what he was doing. 2 months later, the Rebbe says, I wrote you a letter. What happened? Yeah. You asked me something. I answered you. So what's going on?
Tachlis, yeah.
Tachlis, yeah. So then he invited the Rebbe to a conference, and instead of the conference, I think the second letter that I'm quoting is instead of the Rebbe going to the conference, Rebbe sent this letter to the conference, which was arranged with the inspiration and excitement that was generated by the first letter. So to us, it's not that I'm saying. If you read the Rebbe's Torah, even if you didn't see that letter, you would know that the Rebbe, one of the things the Rebbe always talked about is that you're given everything that you need to do what Hashem wants you to do in this world. And it went the other side also. You have to use everything you have to do what Hashem wants you to this world. So it was so on one hand, if you don't have something, so you have the ability, if Hashem created someone a certain way, then they have everything they need to do what their mission is in the world. So don't lament that they're not somebody else. And as parents, that's our job also, to help our children maximize their potential that they were given by Hashem. Hashem gives them the potential. We don't give them the potential. And it's our job as parents to educate them that way. So you would know that every person in this world is here for a reason. Someone, I'm going on tangents here and whatever.
It's enjoyable tangents.
Someone once asked, there was once a guy he was a grocery delivery boy, and he delivered a package to the Rebbe's. To the Rebbe's mother. So the Rebbe's mother, I think, asked him, is there anything I could do for you? So he says, yeah, I have a question for you. Could you tell me what's the Rebbe's favorite tefillah? So she said, I don't know. I'll ask the Rebbe. I'll get back to you. The Rebbe famously visited his mother every single day. That's a lesson in Kibbudim. Every day, no matter what. So the next time he came for delivery, I asked him, and it's Maidani. All right, he got his answer. One time he wasn't in Lubavitcher, but he lived in Crown Heights. He went to a Farbrengen. When he was by the Farbrengen, the Rebbe explains Maidani. He happened to be there. I mean, obviously, the Rebbe knew he was there. And the Maidani is that we thank Hashem for believing in us another day that Hashem trusted in us. Rabbi Menachem means that you trusted us. That thank you for trusting me for another day of having a neshama. So every day that a neshama comes to this world is something they have to do, and that applies to everyone, and no matter what the person's ability is or lack of ability is. Hashem put that neshama there today, and there's something for them to do. And it's our job just to help them shine and maximize their thing.
That's really beautiful. And also on our pre-call, it came up that you're telling me about this wild breakout story with this art studio that you guys have.
Sure. Thank you. So one of the things that happened with when we were working with children with special needs, we started off with children with special needs. So there's, like I said, Rebbe told Rabbi Sudak, there's 1,000 things to do, you'll figure it out. So we didn't, when we came, if you told me that we would have an art studio, I would say that's the absolute, furthest thing, that if you would tell me there's 1,000 things that I would do, and you would tell me to make a list and imagine 1,000 things that I would do, it wouldn't make the cut.
Art studio doesn't really
make the cut of 1,000 and probably not of 5,000.
Right.
But you, besides 1,000 things, you go to where it leads. You try to serve your community. So when we brought in the kids, we started with kids with special needs. We told these families, and we sincerely meant it. We say we're not just an agency. We're not just an organization that's going to come and go and just have a service and a list of service. See us as your family. We're your family. We're come over to play. our kids, that when parenthetically, there's since we started Friendship Circle, there's now 81 Friendship Circles. So in the beginning, now we have an international office, but in the beginning, people would call me to ask me how to start a Friendship Circle. First thing I would say is, any families or children with special needs, invite them over to your house for Shabbos. Let them play with your kids, and that's how you started. That's how you started Friendship Circle. Don't rent an office. Don't just show respect, friendship, love for a family that has a child with special needs. Teach your kids that, and that's how you start Friendship Circle. So we're family. So when you're family, you find out that you can't be family up to 18 and 20 and 21 years old. Family means forever. So even though we never imagined that we would have programming for adults with special needs, it's only because we didn't think. But if we would have been thinking, we would realize that the kids we started with are all going to grow up.
Right.
And we're not going to abandon them and say,
sorry, you're 25.
Goodbye. So we knew we wouldn't do that. So when these kids got older, we knew that we had to do something. And my wife, who, co-runs and directs the organization with me, literally went around the country to see what people are doing for adults with special needs. And we found two things. And one thing is people were opening cafes and restaurants for people with special needs.
Exclusively for people?
No, to work, to try to hire employees.
Oh, wow.
To try to hire employees, and it's a good place for employment. And it's not only a good place to train in employment, but it's a good place, like we said, we want to bring the community together, to expose people, to show that we're one community, and give the employees that have special needs not only an opportunity to have a job, but to interact with members of the community. So that was one thing we saw and we liked. And the other thing we saw and we liked was an art studio. And the nice thing of an art studio is that art is really something that like levels the playing field between, across special needs, because there's no benefit. If you have, if someone, can't physically walk and somebody else can walk, and you have them play soccer against each other, one has a benefit, the other doesn't. Mm-hmm. So you put the one in a wheelchair and they improvise and they this, but you have them play chess and they're both on the same level playing field. So art was really something that we felt like really allows the soul to shine. So there was and that's what we saw. Not only was it a level playing field, but we started seeing tremendous skills. Go to another story. Most of my stories are going to be about the Rebbe, because that's why I live. So
you're Lubavitch, right?
I'm Lubavitch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you. You got me there. So this is also in the 70s. There was a Paralympic team, so from Israel, that came to play in the. I think the Olympics were in Toronto or Montreal, wherever it was in the 70s. I think in Montreal. Sorry. They came to play in the Olympics, and they were in America. They were touring America, and these were all people in wheelchairs. Most of them got their disabilities at war. So they came. They asked to meet the Rebbe. And they came, and the Rebbe spoke to them, and that talk is on a video. And the Rebbe says. It uses a very simple. You're talking to they're called nechei tzahal. That means the injured, the paralyzed of the or it's like the injured of the. Here you have an Olympic team. These people are incredible athletes. They show they represent the fact that we all know that when Hashem gives someone a deficiency in one area, gives them a special ability in another area. So the Rebbe says, when you see someone with a deficiency, assume that they have a special ability somewhere else. So why refer to them by their deficiency if you could refer to them by their special ability? So the Rebbe said, I would want to call you Mitzuyanei Tzahal, the excellent of the Tzahal. And it wasn't, again, the Rebbe wasn't into euphemism. The Rebbe said, it's real. Look, you're sitting here, you're athletes, you're better athletes than 99% of Israelis, and yet you're called handicapped.
Right.
You're not, focus on on what's, so same thing here when you have the artists. So we refer to the people that are in the arts as artists. Mm-hmm. They're not, we don't refer to them people with special needs. They're artists. So we had someone that came in and she had cerebral palsy. She was very, she had no movement in her hands, maybe a drop, and she wanted to be an artist. So she couldn't talk. She used a thing called a Toby, where your eyes, the person's eyes, are tracked by the computer, and it's like a mouse. So imagine typing with a mouse, but your eyes are the mouse. So we tried with her foot. We attached a paintbrush to her foot, and she drew a little bit. She actually got something a little nice. She did a howling wolf with her foot. That was interesting, yeah. Then we got her a helmet with a brush attached to it, and she said she wanted to do a portrait. She wanted to do a self-portrait. And we didn't know what to do. And then we realized that she types with her eyes, so maybe she can draw with her eyes. So the art teacher that we had there said, could I borrow your Toby for a while? And he's an experienced artist, 30 years. And he drew with his eyes, and something looked similar to like a face, hardly. And he told her, he said, this is what I did. He says, just don't be discouraged if it takes you 2 years to get to here. And then he gave her techniques of how to do it, how to do shading and how to zoom in, zoom out. Within 2-3 days, she drew a self-portrait.
Wow.
Yeah. And 6 weeks later, she drew a piece that we sold at an auction for, we did very well. It was called The Dancer in a Wheelchair. And now she already learned, different levels of shading. And so that's called, she had that inside. You could say the person, Hashem gives a person a skill and let them just live the life. No, you can't just when I say a person has everything they need to do what Hashem wants them to do, it doesn't mean you don't have to work hard to dig and see really, really what's in there. But, just an interesting thing. I introduced her to a donor of ours, very successful person. And she spoke to him using her eyes. And when he left, he said, I can't imagine how sad and depressed she must be. I told him, she doesn't, rank anywhere near the top of the list of the most, the saddest people I know. And all those people are all able-bodied, right, wealthy, successful people. So it's just, what a person feels that they can be who they can. We had someone else in the studio that really tells the story great. Her name is Carly. She was in our studio, and the studio, they have like social, there's a bunch of people, artists there, but they also sit around the table, and the artists, the volunteers, the staff, and they went around the table. If you can be someone else for a day, who would you want to be? Everyone went around the table. Everyone had someone they would want to be for a day. I would have an answer for that. Interesting. I don't know that I would want to change lives with anyone, but for one day it would be interesting to see what it's like to be.
I could add that question to the end of the list of questions
else.
If you.
Right. I'm saying I'm not going to answer that. But it's. So
they went around.
They went around. When they came to Carly, she said, "Carly, I don't want to be anyone but Carly. She's in a wheelchair. She has a hard time talking, and." She didn't want she couldn't imagine for one day not being Carly. she didn't say, I want to be someone that could walk around. I'm interested to know what it's like to walk. She never walked. We all have to, what kind of lesson can we all learn from that? That's what really.
That's gevura. That's true gevura right there.
Right. So the reason why I have an answer and you have an answer, someone else has an answer, that's a deficiency in us. Because what do you mean you want to be someone else for a day? You're not, if you're someone else, then you're not living the life that Hashem put you here to do. How would you even imagine? She has the right answer. I'm saying anyone that would answer that with anyone other than themselves that's the wrong answer. Flat out, that's the wrong answer. Unless the only way I'll tell you is if you could be someone else that has a lot of money and you get to, in that day you get to
that's a life hack, right?
You get to actually give away all that money. Then I'll give it to you. Then I'll give it to you. If I could be someone, that's but to be someone else, to experience their life for a day, we all shouldn't want that. But Carly got that beauty, and that's what. Listen, just.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. We interrupt this episode for a very special message. I want to tell you all about the Flatbush Community Fund. They're doing a fundraiser now, and they are raising so much money for those in need. They're doing great, and I'm even talking as if it's my. We're doing great, but we still need a little more money to go ahead and help the people of Flatbush. So I grew up in Flatbush. I grew up in Brooklyn, and I have so many nice, beautiful things to say about the community. It is probably the most diverse community I've ever been in or ever seen. Whether it's you have Hasidim, Sfardim, Litvish, modern Orthodox, observant, not observant. It doesn't make a difference. There's so many beautiful, incredible Jews in Klal Yisrael, and we have over 100 shuls involved in the Flatbush Community Fund supporting it. We have Balabatim. We have so many, and everyone's giving, but unfortunately, there's so many people in need, and you probably get bombarded with raisits and campaigns and charities, and they all need it. But I'll tell you why it's so incredible to give to the Flatbush Community Fund. First of all, you'll be supporting the show. So if you enjoy the show, thank you, and go ahead and help our sponsors out. But it's also, if you're from Flatbush, there's the idea of a Karsatov, and I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this are from Brooklyn. But if you're not, you're like, why do I need to help that community? I'm not even a part of them. And that's a great question. And we are right now in a time of, Asar Simei Tshuva. You might be, chances are you're probably watching or listening to this after that. But whenever we want to better ourselves and become bigger, it's so easy to really just negate any responsibilities we need to do. But when you go the extra mile, you go say, okay, you know what? Here's the message. Here's the sign from God. This is your sign to go ahead and help, whether it's an orphan in Flatbush, it's an almana in Flatbush, or it's a family that just, it's financially very difficult for them to make it by. And the Flatbush Community Fund does it in the most, I'm going to say most honest way, but that's not what I'm trying to say. They do it in a way that makes the people receiving feel so dignified, most dignified. That's what I was trying to say. In the most dignified way. And I have a bunch of stats over here because there's too many stats to memorize because they do so much. They have a food pantry that from March 2020 to July 22 gave over 20,000 boxes of food. Over 665,000 pounds of food were distributed. Over 80,000 families were assisted. Over 56,000 people were assisted. Almost $500,000 of value food were distributed. They have Zechron Tzvi Zev Learning Enrichment Program. They have home goods distribution. They have grocery accounts. They have interest-free loans. They have Pesach assistance. They have emergency payments. They have financial mentoring. They have Zichron Blimi Hershkowitz Tefillin Fund, and so much more. So if you haven't yet given to the Flatbush Community Fund, this is your sign from God. Well, I don't know if I could say that, but this is your sign to go ahead and give to them. They could use the money. The people won't probably ever give you a thank you, but you'll feel that instant feeling of satisfaction of like, wow, I really helped someone. Imagine someone, they just don't have food for Shabbos, and all of a sudden they get knock at the door, they go, no one's there, they see a whole box full of the most delicious foods and like, wow, I could really go ahead and enjoy Shabbos. We should never be in that situation, but if we could help someone get out of that situation, that's why the Flatbush Community Fund is here. So go ahead and give towards their campaign. And even if this is after the campaign, go ahead and still give. Unfortunately, there's always money needed. There's always people who need more food, more financial assistance, whatever it is, and that's what they're here for. Go ahead in the link in the show notes and go ahead and open your heart and give as much as you can. Now back to the incredible Rabbi Levi. You mentioned before donors. Is that a difficult part of your job to raise money for your organization? I'm sure you need millions of dollars to run this.
Yes. So we have to raise in Detroit. So the friendship, there are 81 friendship circles around. You have one right here in the 5 towns.
Yeah, sure.
Rabbi and Mrs. Wallowik, and I think there's a Batsheva Bornstein. Then she was an intern by us 20 years ago, running. She helped us run Friendship Circle there. So everyone has their own budget. I mean, so that's not so. In Michigan itself, we have to raise $3 million a year, and originally, when I first started, knocked on doors. Dropped off letters by people. Some of our earliest key supporters we got by. I dropped off a letter, said, "Can I talk to you for 50? Could you give me a meeting for 15 minutes?" And he called me back, and then he came there, and his 4 partners came, and they were him and his 3 partners became lifelong friends and supporters. But it was a cold call, and one of the raising money is very hard, but it's also first of all, it's part of the mitzvah of what we do. We get people give tzedakah. The people that give tzedakah connect with the families as well, so they're part of the circle. Not only they receive. It says Yaiser. That when someone gives money to a poor person, Gemara says that the person that gives the money gains more than the person who receives it. And the same thing here. These people that donate, they find that their lives are enriched a lot more, and they have the mitzvah of tzedakah, and then they become friendly with us. They learn more about Torah and mitzvahs. So that's part of the whole mission. And then they help you decide, what the priorities are. You see, if you could get a donor to have a geschmack and to have a good feeling about a certain program, that's a way to do it. I have, this is from all the hard work of fundraising. We had our easiest donation was from a person who was at that point in his 80s. Now he's still him and his wife are still very close friends of ours. They're in their 90s. Called me up out of the blue, and he said he had a brother and sister who had special needs, and he grew up. They moved away to California with his parents, and they both passed away now. And he wants to do something that would have made his brother and sister's life better if they were here. And he ended up, thank you. He ended up giving us, building a gym, from scratch for us, added onto our building. And he comes there, and he just is always overwhelmed with emotion. And as happy as he is, and as much nachas as he has from seeing the kids enjoy the gym that he built, it's always tinged with pain. Why wasn't something like this available when how much different my brother and sister's life would be? And we find that now it's one of the most emotional things that happen is when older parents or siblings of people that are older and miss this generation of positive enlightenment for people with special needs. And they see they see people being respected and loved, and they think, they think of all their relatives from the past that they knew that missed out on this, and that's it shouldn't happen. And we're, with all the negative things that go on in the world and how we're not as good as we used to be, this is a big positive, and not only in our community, but in general, that the world became much more accepting and inclusive of people with special needs is one of the beautiful, positive things in the world.
Yeah, that is the world definitely gets a lot of bad rap for things going on and how things are like falling apart, but that's a very nice way of looking at it, that in that field we have made a lot of progress. If there's one person in history that you could meet, you're still Rabbi Shemtov, don't worry, but you meet them for an hour, who would that person be?
I'm sorry, but I can't. I can't.
You could say the Rebbe.
No, but I want to say the Rebbe in a certain context. I would never imagine myself meeting with the Rebbe for an hour, but that's why the hour thing goes away.
Okay.
And so first of all, if I could go back in time, that's the time that I was with the Rebbe when I was, probably like 16, 17 was my peak, the time I would want to go back there. But I would also wish I could, tell the Rebbe in person about Friendship Circle and see that to see the Rebbe in, see what that would be like. And
I feel like you know the answer to that. Like,
I know, but I still, I miss that.
Right.
I miss that the, the other areas of shlichus that people do, there's a lot, there's more. Yes, here we have to go a step away. We have to we have to realize what it would be, but at the end it wasn't there. And I wish I could, bring this and see what it would be and get the personal chizuk, the personal, inspiration for that.
Is there one mitzvah in particular today that means a little more to you than the others?
The most important mitzvah is chinuch, is education of our kids. I think that's vishinantam levanecha is the most important thing, and it speaks to Friendship Circle, but it also speaks to other things that I'm passionate about. And chinuch is educating our kids is the most important, is very, very important, and it's the most important. And you have, and because a kid, every little thing that happens in a kid's life has a exponential effect on how it affects them as an adult, and that's for good and for negative. I actually, through the Friendship Circle, just by way, just a little bit of a tangent, we got in. So we had teenage volunteers. We have hundreds of teenage volunteers. Now with the teen mental health crisis, we ended up starting a mental health program within the teens. We have a program called You Matter, which is supposed to teach teens how they matter. That's the most important lesson you could tell someone, is that they matter and where and how. We then saw that there was a lack of parenting. So we actually got into parenting. Rabbi Sheistaub developed a whole course for us. Now he's teaching it himself, and with us. But that's one of the things that he put in that lesson is how powerful we are as parents to the positive influence and the chas v'shalom, the negative influence it could have, to be careful of that and cognizant of that. And don't, even though it's a difficult world, the worst thing you hear is manage your expectations. You can raise in this world here good Yerei Shamayim, Talmidei Chachamim, good from Yidden, all the way through, and you're helping out by bringing good from Torah content to people, and
Sure,
that's your part. So that's what this is. That's what it's all about. Take everything that's there instead of seeing it as a negative. So there's podcasts and there's YouTube and there's everything. So that's what YouTube was created for. Was for things like this, to bring chizuk to people and to help them in their chinuch. So chinuch is definitely my number one
answer. I like that. Is there a story that either happened to you or that you've heard that specifically inspired you?
A story that... I'm going to tell the story. It inspired me. I heard this story. It just literally came to my mind. There was a person that was in the field of some type of special need, and he was a professor, and he was traveling, and he was there for a conference. He was from community, and he got a host family to stay with for Shabbos, during the conference. So he was walking back from shul with the father of the family on Friday night, and the father asked him, what do you do? The person, he says, I'm an expert in this field. He said, you know what? I have one of my children was diagnosed with this, but he's all better. You'll never know. You won't be able to tell which one it is. They go to the meal, they have the Shabbos meal. Afterwards, everything good. The kids leave. And the father asks this professor, he says, were you able to tell which one it is? He says, yeah. He says, which one? And he pointed at the one. So he said, how were you able to tell? He said, I'll tell you how I was able to tell. Before you made Kiddush, you benched all your kids. And after you benched them, you gave them a kiss. I saw on one a little stronger kiss, a little stronger hug. You hugged a little tighter. Because that's how I knew. And it's interesting when I heard that story, because it reminded me of a story of the Rebbe. Yeah. in the 1940s, this was a story told by someone that was a bacher then. The Rebbe came down the elevator. This was his father-in-law, was then the Rebbe, the sixth Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. The Rebbe came downstairs and saw a bunch of bachrim. So he says, let me tell you, the Rebbe says, a fresh vart from the Rebbe.
I thought it was going to be another story.
What?
I thought it was going to be a story within a story within a story.
A fresh vart. Let me tell you a fresh vart from the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Rebbe said that he went up to his Rebbe, his father-in-law, and said that a lot of people come to see the Rebbe, the son-in-law, our Rebbe, and a lot of people are not frum, they're not Shemtov mitzvahs, and the Rebbe gives them a lot of attention and a lot of kiruv, and it could be some people complained. So the Rebbe went to his father-in-law and said, went to the Rebbe, to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and said, am I doing the right thing? And the Rebbe is repeating this to the Bachram, he's repeating this conversation. He says, tell me, am I doing the right thing by being close to these people? So the Rebbe said that a parent loves, Hashem gives people a capacity to love all their children equally. He says, but if a person has a child with special needs, a parent has the capacity to give them extra what they need and give an extra measure. And the Frierdiker Rebbe told, the previous Rebbe told the Rebbe, he says, that's what you're doing with these people. He says, everyone is equal, everyone's a child. He says, but some people need a stronger kiruv, need a stronger connection, and they need a bigger hug. So that connects what we do at Friendship Circle to what other Chabad houses do. There are people that need a bigger hug because their lack of ability is in Torah and mitzvahs, and there are people that need a better hug because they have they're someone with special needs. But that's what we are. We are we're there for the people that need the bigger hugs.
That's really beautiful. And obviously for anyone listening, we're going to have a link in the show notes for people to donate, because I'm sure donations are always appreciated.
Yeah.
But maybe you said this before, like if someone wants to help get involved, what should they do? What should...
So what I would say is there's a wonderful program that we have at Friendship Circle International, which is the international office that helps the other friendship circles, where we give tefillin to young people who have special needs whose parents would not buy them tefillin. So friendship circles all around the world know that when you see a bar mitzvah boy in your community, the special needs community that's ready to have a bar mitzvah, you can give the tefillin. There's an anonymous donor that sponsors that, but I'm sure they could use more funding there. So that's to give, to help. So I would say my own link, if you want to learn about what Friendship Circle in Michigan does, what I could talk to mostly is friendshipcircle.org, but the national office, which people should donate to, would be friendshipcircle.com. And that's, and specifically to help people, I would say to the fund that helps helps in the chinuch of these special children who need bigger hugs.
That's really beautiful. I'm a little disappointed you didn't bring up the Rebbe enough, but no, it was really beautiful. It was really great getting to talk to you, and I appreciate you coming in a little early to have this conversation.
I am on my way now to the aisle. That's
wow. Okay, you're not so far from here.
I know. That's as I feel.
Wow.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm here. You're just like a step away from the aisle, so I'm meeting you at the aisle.
Shkayach, okay.
So when was the last time you were there?
A while ago. Maybe I should get the cookies from there for this office. I think it'd attract more people. Yeah, I need to go back.
Okay, so go back.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, I can't ask you to put on film, but I could ask you to go to the
Fair enough.
That's the next step. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you so much for sticking to the end and watching and listening to this entire episode. As a bonus, as a present for you, I want to give you a high five. So the next time you see me, you'll say, hey, by the way, I listened to the full episode, and you'll get a high five. Unless you're a girl. I'm Shomer, and my wife will give you a high five. Thank you so much. Please go ahead and rate this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Check out the other shows on the Living Lchaim network. We have so many incredible shows to help you, guide you through a life with more joy. And if you haven't yet given to the Flatbush Community Fund, go ahead, give them something, whether it's $1, $10, or $100,000, whatever it is, it goes directly to the people in need in the Flatbush community, and it's a great cause. Till next time, Lchaim. Living Lchaim.